Genuinely, what is wrong with the economy here in America? I don't understand how, you're having all these fake job postings where these companies are not, having any sort of fines for doing these things. Then you're having college graduates graduating school where they were told all their lives to go to college, go 4 years more of education so you can land that better paying job and have an easier life. And they're not able to land a job. And then you're having, 20% of the population just continuously thriving, maybe 50% of the population being able to work and live a somewhat normal life, and the other 50% is on survival mode. It is absolutely ridiculous to me that all this is happening, and yet a lot of our world leaders, but especially our world leader here in America, our president, is just seemingly thinking that everything is fine. He doesn't care about the normal person when it comes to, hey, you're going to have to pay extra gas or gasoline for your car because I'm starting this stupid war in Iran so I can appease the guy in Israel. Ben Netanyahu, that freaking twat. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's also this giant misalignment when it comes to the stock market and the actual economy. Because the stock market is just continuously going up, even though we continuously are getting terrible news after terrible news, right? You're having the president trying to pump up the stock market while creating all of these lies, and then you're having Iran debunking them, and the stock market still doesn't do anything. It doesn't crash or anything. You're also having all these terrible job reports where the government, is inflating that, oh my God, it created 30, 40,000, 100,000 jobs in this month. And then a couple months down the line, they revise it down by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, to the point where there have already been some months here in America where there was a net loss in job creation. A net loss. And what's funny to me is that you're having all these fake job postings that can also easily inflate those numbers. And again, they don't get fulfilled, right? So you're having these fake data points that don't mean anything. But hey, you graduated college, now you're guaranteed this white collar job where, sitting on a desk 8 hours a day, it's very cushy, relaxing, whatever it may be. But then again, you're not even guaranteed that now in today's economy with the amount of AI that is being used now with trying to replace entry level work, especially within the white collar sector. It's absolutely ridiculous to me that companies are trying to not bring in these new employees to train them. So then eventually those employees can move up and take more responsibility. Like, I don't understand how are people supposed to get to these manager level roles or executive roles when they're not even given the chance to, actually learn the work that is being done as well as the role that they're given. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But then again, you're having all these companies, especially, if you're working in finance or accounting, I imagine even in engineering, where a lot of these companies are just giving out H-1 visas like it's candy. They can pay, but they'd rather pay the bare minimum and hire all these foreign workers that are, out of the country, living in India, Vietnam, Cambodia, who knows from where, pay them cents on the dollar and just continuously rack up, record-breaking profit years after year. It's gotten to the point where this country does not care about its civilians at all, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And now the original foundation that was set in place when it came to going to college is really starting to show cracks within the system in that, hey, now this thing isn't guaranteed anymore. And a big thing that a lot of people mention is go into the trades. And the thing with the trades is that there's already a lot of people going to there for this reason. And a big issue with that is that it is going to get so saturated that the pay is going to be held down because of the amount of people that are going into the fields. That is something that is not talked about. And then it continuously leaves this country in a state where, which is the most craziest thing to me with the economy, is that we're taxing workers more than we're taxing wealth, right? You're having people earning $40,000, $50,000 a year getting taxed 20%. Meanwhile, you're having individuals that are able to gain these trust funds from their parents when they pass and whatnot that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're yet somewhat or somehow able to pay the bare minimum in taxes. And as long as they keep those investments or whatever assets they have in place, it just keeps growing and growing and growing to the point, even with that taxing that they received however many years ago, they've already broken even to what they were when they first got all those assets, if that makes sense. And then they just keep growing those assets even further by just allowing time to do its own thing. And what do? They do absolutely nothing. A lot of these people just sit on their asses all day in their mansions, playing games or going to clubs, parties, whatever it may be if they're young, and they've been given all this money because they haven't earned it themselves, so they don't really understand the true meaning of it, besides to just hold and keep it. And yet they're not taxed as much as the average working hard American here in the States. And believe it or not, at one point in time here in America, this was not the case. This was very, very rare. You had, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, you had multimillionaires being taxed at 90% of their income, to the point where the government said to them essentially, hey, we're going to tax you 90%. And the way they worked around that is by giving their employees a lot of that money so they weren't taxed, right? They weren't just giving all this money to the government, because at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of people want to give their hard-earned cash to the government, because that's essentially 3 hours of your life just gone away from you by allowing someone else to take that hard-earned income that they don't really deserve. Because at the end of the day, a lot of governments are just extremely irresponsible, and especially in this debt-ran economy that the world is set in motion, is absolutely atrocious. And it's getting to the point where the modern day economy is regressing so much that we're essentially, most of us are becoming peasants now, right? But the problem with that, at least in modern times, is that peasants back in the day, they were at least guaranteed a roof over their heads and food on the table as long as they were working. That is what the lords provided them, or the noblemen. And that was another giant reassurance for them, in that they weren't stressed out about that. Nowadays, you're having people, working 40, 50, hell, even sometimes 60 hours a week, and they're, living paycheck to paycheck, putting so much more stress on one's body. Peasants back in the day got to, have many, many, many months off out of the year, especially during the winter, where they got to chill and essentially go on vacation. The only downside was medical advancements back in those days. Other than that, a lot of things they've had is a lot better than what we're currently going through here in the 2000s. And it's already to the point where people are being so stressed on these basic necessities of life that they're already getting, ill in society. They're getting burnt out. They're getting diagnosed with so many illnesses that is being brought on by stress. And it's just absolutely, sickening and saddening that this is how the economy is operating right now. And it's only going to continue to get worse. You're either going to have to endure this slow downfall, or you're going to either sink or you're going to swim. There's no in between. And all of this was brought on by past leaders making poor decisions, and especially the baby boomers, and just being the most selfish generation that there can possibly be. They grew up in a time where their fathers and mothers gave everything to them. They had an easy life, able to live off of one income. And what did they do? They just made terrible choices. We got off the gold standard. The only thing that was keeping this country intact here in America was having the currency being linked to gold, and an asset that was scarce and only so much of it is out there. They got off of it to, again, ensure that America's growing economy, economy in quotes, is continuously growing, and that the influence and power of America is spread out through the world. That is the only reason why we got off the currency. If we didn't get off of it, we wouldn't be experiencing this terrible inflation as well as these record-breaking debts that this country holds. And what's more sickening is that you're having all of these apps and platforms that, promote debt. Hey, buy now, pay later, or use your credit card and purchase this, couple $1,000 item and just pay it off on a monthly payment of a couple $100. No biggie, right? And people eat that crap up because times are really tough right now.